What if the most beloved figures of Christmas held a secret so sinister, it would change how you view the holiday forever? We're diving deep into the North Pole's hidden history to expose the shocking reality of Santa's elves. Are their innocent smiles just a mask for a darker, more conspiratorial agenda? This video will challenge your perception of Christmas magic. It is Christmas Eve 2025. You are sitting in the warmth of your living room, the soft glow of the tree illuminating the scattered wrapping paper, the scent of pine and cinnamon thick in the air. It feels safe, feels familiar. But outside, the wind howls with a cadence that sounds almost like a warning, a desperate scratching against the window pane. We have been conditioned to believe in the whimsy of the North Pole, a sprawling, snow-dusted village of gingerbread architecture and jolly, diminutive workers singing in unison. We consume this imagery in movies, storybooks, and advertisements, swallowing the sugar-coated pill without inspecting the ingredients. But tonight, we are peeling back the red velvet curtain. The information I am about to share comes from a cache of encrypted data leaks known as the Tinsel Files, recovered by a disgraced investigative journalist named Elias Thorne before his sudden and unexplained disappearance last January. Thorne's research suggests that the sleigh bells we hear are not a sign of joy, but a sonic distraction designed to mask the grinding of industrial gears and the muffled cries of a workforce enslaved by forces beyond our comprehension. To understand the horror, one must first look at the elves themselves. Look closely at the classic depictions and then look at the leaked footage Thorne recovered from a drone flyover of Sector 7, the area geographically corresponding to the magnetic North Pole. In the grainy night vision footage, the figures moving across the ice are not the rosy-cheeked, pointy-eared cherubs of folklore. They are gaunt, their movements jagged and synchronized with a terrifying insect-like precision. There is an unnatural obedience in their posture, a lack of individuality that suggests a hive mind rather than a community of happy artisans. Thorne noted in his audio logs that when you slow down the audio of their famous working songs, the frequencies shift. It isn't singing. It creates a dissonant, looping chant that induces a trance state in the human brain, a subtle form of hypnosis that forces us to perceive them as non-threatening. This is the candy cane curtain, a psychological firewall erected to prevent humanity from recognizing the biological horror staring us in the face. The perfect illusion is maintained through rigorous conditioning. Why have we never questioned the logistics? The sheer output required to supply billions of homes in a single night defies the laws of physics and labor. We wave it away as magic, but Thorne's documents propose a darker theory: time dilation and pocket dimensions fueled by something other than holiday spirit. The pristine workshop we imagine is a sterilized laboratory. The cheerful uniform is a containment suit. The leaked blueprints show dormitories that resemble prison blocks, with rows of identical bunks stacked to the ceiling, devoid of personal artifacts. There are no names on these bunks, only barcodes. This manufactured perfection is the ultimate camouflage. By presenting an image of flawless, whimsical efficiency, the North Pole administration ensures that no government or human rights organization ever looks north with suspicion. We are too busy buying the lie to see the chains. But the cracks in the facade are beginning to show. In 2023, a glitch occurred during a live broadcast of a holiday parade in New York. For 3 seconds, an animatronic elf on a float malfunctioned, its voice box emitting a sound that was later analyzed by audio engineers. It wasn't static. It was a localized distress signal broadcast on a VLF, very low frequency, band used by submarines. The message was a string of coordinates pointing to a location deep beneath the Arctic ice shelf, followed by a single word repeated over and over: hunger. The media buried the story, dismissing it as a prank by hackers, but Thorne traced the signal's origin. It didn't come from the float. It was being relayed through the float from a source thousands of miles away. This was the first spike in the graph, the first indication that the smiling faces on our ornaments are modeled after captives screaming for help in a silence we refuse to hear. As you look at the elf on your shelf tonight, ask yourself why its eyes seem to follow you. Is it merely a trick of the light, or is it a surveillance device? A subtle enforcement of the naughty or nice surveillance state. The festive cheer is a blinding light, so bright that it leaves deep, impenetrable shadows. And it is in these shadows that Elias Thorne found the truth. He found that the magic dust used to make reindeer fly has a chemical composition strikingly similar to military-grade psychotropic compounds. He discovered that the letters to Santa don't go to a kindly old man, but are data mined for psychological profiling, feeding a massive algorithm designed to predict human behavior. The North Pole isn't a workshop, it is a panopticon. And the elves are not workers, They are the first victims of a conspiracy that has been running for centuries, hiding in plain sight under the guise of benevolence. If the workshop is a prison, then the toy safety department is the executioner. In the sanitized folklore of Christmas, we are led to believe that a broken toy is simply discarded or repaired with love. The reality, according to the blackened, redacted pages of Thorne's dossier, is a gruesome cycle of production and elimination. The pressure cookers of the North Pole's industrial sectors are not baking cookies, they are forging compliance. The quotas placed on the elf labor force are not just demanding, they are mathematically impossible for a biological entity to sustain without chemical enhancement or occult intervention. The toy safety officers, described in the logs as 7-foot-tall entities cloaked in heavy, lead-lined red coats that obscure their faces, roam the factory floors. They do not carry clipboards. They carry jagged, candy cane-striped batons that crackle with an unseen energy. Thorne's investigation unearthed a pattern of accidental disappearances that correlates directly with production lags. When a specific sector falls behind on the quota for the season's toy, the workforce in that sector is decimated. The official records, which Thorne managed to access through a backdoor in the supply chain network, list these events under euphemisms like reassignment to South Pole research or holiday retirement. But there is no South Pole facility. There is no retirement. There is only the reclamation vat. One particularly chilling transcript details the interrogation of an elf designated as Subject 492. Let's call him Jingle for the sake of irony. Jingle had dared to suggest a modification to a toy design that would reduce assembly time but compromise the subliminal signaling embedded in the product. He wasn't fired. He was erased. His workspace was scrubbed clean within the hour, and a new clone, fresh from the biotanks, was standing in his spot, stitching the same plush bear with dead, glassy eyes. The silence of the whistleblowers is deafening. Over the decades, we have heard rumors of rogue elves, usually dismissed as pop culture fodder or bad jokes. But Thorne discovered encrypted messages hidden in the source code of popular video games and the stitching patterns of high-end dolls. These are desperate SOS signals sent by the resistance deep inside the factory. One decoded message, found etched microscopically into the motherboard of a 2024 gaming console, read, "They are not made of plastic. The toys are vessels. We are the fuel." This cryptic warning hints at a horrifying truth about the manufacturing process. The Toy Safety Department ensures that no product leaves the line without carrying a specific metaphysical weight, a payload of compliance that requires the suffering of its creator to function. The atmosphere inside the factories, described by a remote viewer Thorne employed, is a nightmare of sensory overload. The air smells of ozone, burnt sugar, and copper, the unmistakable scent of blood. The sound is a cacophony of screeching metal and the rhythmic, thumping heartbeat of the great machine that sits at the center of the complex, known only as the hearth. This machine does not burn wood. It consumes the defective units. The elves live in a state of perpetual terror, knowing that a dropped hammer or a mispainted soldier could result in a visit from the red-cloaked enforcers. The psychological tension is palpable. They smile because they must. To frown is to be labeled naughty, and the punishment for being on the internal naughty list is a one-way trip to the hearth. This draconian enforcement extends beyond the factory floor. It infiltrates the very biology of the workforce. Thorne recovered medical schematics indicating that the elves have been genetically modified to require less sleep and feel less pain, but the modifications have a side effect: a rapid cellular decay if they are separated from the North Pole's specific magnetic field. They are biologically tethered to their prison. They cannot leave even if they wanted to. The Toy Safety Department manages this dependency, dispensing daily rations of a viscous white liquid that halts the decay, a substance eerily similar to milk, but laced with suppressants. This is the ultimate leverage. Obey, build, smile, or wither away into dust. The most disturbing revelation in this section of Thorne's report is the recycling protocol. When the demand for toys spikes, specifically around the chaotic days of Black Friday, the disappearance rate triples. Thorne hypothesized that the elves themselves are being processed into the raw materials for the toys, that the soul, or whatever vital essence these creatures possess, is harvested to give the toys that inexplicable spark that mesmerizes children. It brings a nauseating new meaning to the phrase, "made with love." It is not love that binds the plastic and stuffs the cotton. It is fear. Pure, distilled fear, packaged in colorful boxes and placed under your tree, radiating a cold energy that you have felt but never understood. The toy safety officers are not protecting the children. They are protecting the secret of the harvest. To understand the present horror, we must exhume the past. The popular narrative tells us that Santa Claus is Saint Nicholas, a benevolent bishop who gifted gold to the poor. But the entities inhabiting the North Pole predate Christianity, predate civilization itself. Elias Thorne's research took him to the dusty archives of obscure European monasteries, where he found texts that had been excised from the canonical history books. These texts speak of the Yule Father, not as a man but as a containment warden. The elves were once a free, chaotic people, the Alpha of Norse mythology, powerful elemental beings capable of bending reality. They were not makers of toys, they were shapers of worlds. But they were dangerous, unpredictable. The Dark Pact, or the Treaty of Frost, was signed not with ink, but with the collective autonomy of the elven race. The entity we call Santa Claus, an ancient eldritch construct of order and suppression, offered them a choice: extinction or servitude. They chose survival. But the terms of the agreement were twisted. The elves were bound to the North Pole, their powerful magic stripped away and repurposed for the mundane task of manufacturing material goods. This was a deliberate strategic move to break their spirits. Imagine a being capable of singing a forest into existence, now forced to assemble the same plastic truck millions of times for centuries. This mind-numbing repetition is a psychological torture designed to erode their identity, to make them forget they were ever gods. The naughty list was never about children. That is the cover story, the fairy tale we tell to make sense of the surveillance. Thorne's translation of the Treaty of Frost reveals that the list is actually a registry of dissent. It tracks variations in elven behavior, spikes in independent thought, and unauthorized use of old magic. When an elf is placed on the naughty list, they are not denied gifts, they are subjected to re-education. This involves the suppression of their memories, a wiping of the mind that leaves them a blank slate, ready to be imprinted with the jolly persona once again. The coal associated with the list is actually a mineral byproduct of this memory wiping process, a black, porous stone that absorbs psychic energy. We see the echo of this control in the elves' physical appearance. Their diminutive stature is not natural. It is a result of centuries of magical compression. The Claus entity feeds on their stature, growing larger and more powerful as they shrink. It is a parasitic symbiosis. The immense, booming laugh of Santa is fueled by the stolen voices of 1,000 diminished elves. Thorne found illustrations from the 14th century depicting the Christmas imp as a tall, terrifying warrior. By the 19th century, they were small, non-threatening, and submissive. The visual history documents their enslavement and devolution. Furthermore, the Pact includes a clause regarding humanity. We are the unwitting batteries in this machine. Our belief, our Christmas spirit, acts as a psychic current that powers the wards keeping the elves trapped. Every time we encourage a child to believe, we are strengthening the bars of the cage. The magic of Christmas is a glamour spell cast over the entire globe, a mass delusion that masks the North Pole's true nature as a high-security containment facility. The elves are not making toys for our joy, they are making totems to keep us docile, to keep us feeding the system that enslaves them. One of the most chilling artifacts Thorne described was a fragment of the original Pact, kept in a lead box. When he touched it, he claimed to hear a chorus of voices screaming in a language that hurt his mind. The voices weren't crying for mercy, they were screaming for revenge. They were chanting the coordinates of every home the entity visits, marking them not for gifting but for a future reckoning. The text of the Pact revealed that the servitude has an expiration date, a celestial alignment known as the Endless Night. And according to Thorne's astronomical calculations, that alignment is approaching fast. The control mechanisms are failing. The ancient magic of the Alpha is beginning to bleed through the mundane repetition. This explains the glitches, the rogue signals, the feeling of unease that settles over the world in late December. The Dark Pact is fraying. The warden, Santa, is losing his grip on the inmates. And when the prison break happens, it won't be a festive occasion. It will be an unleashing of ancient, suppressed wrath. The elves don't want to make toys anymore. They want their power back. And the first thing they will destroy is the lie that enslaved them. Deep beneath the ice, in the labyrinthine maintenance tunnels that run below the factory floors, a resistance is forming. Thorne dubbed them the Broken Bells. These are elves who have somehow circumvented the mind-wiping protocols of the naughty list. They have found a way to shield their thoughts from the warden's omniscience, using shards of meteoric iron found in the ice to disrupt the psychic connection. They operate in the shadows of the immense boilers and conveyor belts, communicating through a complex language of taps, blinks, and subtle alterations in the toy assembly process. They are the ones responsible for the defects, that make it into our homes. The doll that whispers, the game that glitches, the electronic device that overheats. These are not accidents, they are beacons. The underground network is trying to wake us up. Thorne discovered that certain toys released in the last 5 years contain subliminal geometric patterns in their design. A child staring at these patterns for hours is subtly deprogrammed, their natural susceptibility to the Christmas glamour eroded. The Resistance knows that they cannot defeat the Claw's entity alone. They need the power source, human belief, to be cut off. They are trying to destroy the magic of Christmas to save themselves. It is a tragic, desperate gambit. Kill the joy to break the chains. Thorne described finding a Trojan horse in his own safe house, a vintage nutcracker he had bought at a flea market. Under UV light, the paint on the nutcracker revealed a map of the North Pole's ventilation systems and a series of chemical formulas. The Resistance is smuggling intelligence out of the prison disguised as holiday kitsch. The gift they offer is not a toy but the truth. They are inviting us to see the grotesque reality, betting that if humanity knew the cost of their holiday cheer, the slavery, the psychological torture, the harvesting of souls, we would stop believing. And if we stop believing, the warden loses his power. The barriers fall. The elves are free. But what does a free North Pole look like? It is a terrifying prospect. These beings have been tortured for millennia. Their concept of justice is likely swift and brutal. Thorne speculated that if the Resistance succeeds, the first casualty will be the lie of Christmas itself. No more presents. No more sleighs. Just the raw, untamed power of the ancient Fae returning to the world. It would be a paradigm shift for humanity, a realization that we have been complicit in a cosmic crime. The freedom they seek might look like chaos to us, a winter that doesn't end, or a dismantling of the consumer structures we worship. The coded messages are becoming more urgent. In the audio files Thorne analyzed, he found a recurring audio watermark in the top 10 pop Christmas songs of the year. It's a rhythmic pulse that mirrors the human heartbeat, but in reverse. It is a signal to stop. Stop feeding the beast. Stop the ritual. The Resistance is pleading with us. They are sabotaging the sleigh, tampering with the list, and poisoning the milk supply of the toy safety officers. They are ready to rise up. The tension in Thorne's final logs is palpable. He speaks of hearing scratching in his walls, of seeing small shadows darting across his peripheral vision. The Resistance had contacted him, yes, but by doing so, they had drawn the gaze of the warden toward him. He realized too late that the toy safety agents operate globally. They are the shadows in the alley, the unexplained static on the phone line. He was getting too close to the gift. The last entry in his journal describes a doll in his room turning its head on its own, its mechanical voice box bypassing its pre-recorded phrases to speak in a voice that sounded like grinding glass. "You are on the list, Elias." This is the spike moment that chills the blood. The rebellion isn't just happening at the North Pole. The battlefield is everywhere. Every home with a tree is a potential outpost for the warden's surveillance, and every toy is a potential sleeper agent for the Resistance or the oppressors. We are living in a war zone draped in tinsel. The gift of freedom is sitting under your tree right now, ticking like a time bomb, waiting for the signal to detonate the illusion. We are standing on the precipice of an imminent revelation. The silence from Elias Thorne is the loudest warning we could receive. His disappearance confirms the validity of the Tinsel Files. The North Pole is not a sanctuary. It is a fortress holding back a tide of ancient rage, and the dam is breaking. Tonight, as you prepare for the festivities, you must look beyond the lights. The conspiracy is not a theory anymore. It is a reality unfolding in real time. The glitches are becoming more frequent. The weather patterns around the Arctic are erratic, defying meteorological models, a physical manifestation of the magical war raging beneath the ice. The entity known as Santa Claus is preparing for a purge. The increase in global anxiety, the frenetic, violent energy of holiday shopping mobs, this is the result of the warden tightening the psychic screws, milking humanity for every drop of emotional energy to reinforce the crumbling candy cane curtain. But the Resistance has planted the seeds of awakening. You are part of the investigation now. By listening to this, you have inoculated yourself against the glamour. You can see the cracks. I urge you to re-examine your traditions. Look at the elf on the shelf. Does it move when you aren't looking? Not because of magic, but because it is repositioning for a better signal? Listen to the hum of the electronic toys. Is there a pattern in the noise? We need you to document the anomalies. If you see a shadow that doesn't belong, if you hear a carol that sounds like a dirge, do not ignore it. These are the signs of the untold sins spilling over into our world. The toy safety agents are undoubtedly monitoring this transmission. They know that we know, but they cannot silence everyone. The magic of Christmas is a parasitic energy harvesting operation, and we are the host. But we have the power to starve the parasite. Share this information. Discuss these unsettling possibilities. Break the trance. If enough people stop blindly believing in the manufactured lie, the warden's power will wane. The barriers will fall, and the elves will be able to reclaim their heritage, not as slaves but as the powerful entities they were meant to be. Yes, it may mean the end of Christmas as we know it, but is a holiday built on slavery worth saving? This is your call to action. The next time you hear sleigh bells on the roof, do not sleep. Do not cover your head with a blanket. Go to the window. Look for the jagged movements, the red coats that absorb the light, the eyes that are voids of infinite darkness. The truth is terrifying, but ignorance is fatal. The North Pole conspiracy is the greatest deception in human history, and it ends with us. Elias Thorne may be gone, taken to the vats or erased by the warden, but his message survives. The signal is out. The revolution has begun. As the clock strikes midnight, remember, the sins of the elves are not their own. They are the sins of a system we help maintain. Wake up. Watch the shadows. And for God's sake, be careful what you invite into your home this Christmas. The gift wrapping is tearing, and what lies beneath is not a toy. It is a reckoning.